I never imagined coming home to this nightmare. After a grueling 36-hour shift in the trauma ward, all I wanted was a hot shower and some sleep. I push open the door to my house, hoping for the quiet relief of home. Instead, I'm greeted by muffled voices and hurried movements from upstairs, the bedroom. My heart sinks as I slowly climb the stairs, each step filled with dread, anger, and disbelief. My wife, Jenna, had been my rock for over a decade. She was the one I trusted with every part of my life. But now, as I approach our bedroom, that trust begins to shatter. There, through the slightly ajar door, I see her entangled with someone else, a man I recognize as her boss, no less. The betrayal stings deeper than any wound. Without thinking, I grab the baseball bat by the closet door, my vision red with fury. This man, this stranger in my house, thinks he can walk into my life, my family, and tear it apart? I'm not letting him leave here untouched. I raise the bat and slam it down, yelling for him to get out, to never show his face again. Chaos ensues. Jenna screams, the man stumbles back, and I swing again. The sound of bone cracking and their desperate pleas blend into a blur. It's only when the police arrive and drag me out, handcuffs cold around my wrists, that I realize the damage I've done. The love of my life had shattered my world, and in one furious moment, I'd lost everything: my freedom, my family, and, it felt, my very soul. As they haul me away, I glance back at Jenna, her face a twisted mix of shock and guilt. The weight of what's happened sinks in deeper when the cell door slams shut behind me. I'm facing years in prison, but I know one thing for sure: this isn't over. This betrayal will not go unanswered. Prison life is a different world. The first days blur together, my mind heavy with bitterness and the raw, aching betrayal that drove me here. The anger still burns, fueling me, and every time I close my eyes, I see Jenna's face twisted with guilt, standing by the man she chose over me. It's that image that keeps me going, hardening my resolve. This isn't where my story ends. It's just where it changes. I keep my head down in here, learning the routines, watching the faces. I've been placed in a cell with Owen, an older man who's already been here for nearly a decade. Owen has his own story, a man who was betrayed by his wife and a friend. He's quiet, but I see the scars betrayal left on him, etched into his face and buried in his hardened gaze. Owen watches me, his perceptive eyes catching my tension. "You're new to this kind of hell," he says one evening, the hint of a smile breaking his usually stern expression. I don't respond immediately. My fists are clenched tight, still battling the anger that gnaws at me like a wound that refuses to heal. "Let me guess," he continues, "you had everything to lose, and she took it from you." I glance at him, wondering how much he's read in my face. "She did," I finally say, the bitterness heavy in my voice. "She took everything." Owen chuckles, a deep, mirthless sound. "Welcome to the club." He pauses, looking away for a moment before muttering, "But sometimes, getting even is the only way to feel like you've still got control." His words linger, simmering in my mind over the next few days. I hadn't thought about revenge in any specific terms. My rage felt too raw, too untamed. But the idea starts taking root, filling the void that my loss left behind. That night, while the cell block echoes with distant snores and the occasional clank of a guard's boots, I lie awake on the thin mattress, plotting. Owen's words fuel my thoughts, planting seeds of vengeance. Jenna betrayed me, cast me aside, and as I stare at the cold ceiling above me, I make a vow. When I'm out, I'll make her regret every second of it. This isn't just about vengeance, though. It's about reclaiming my life, piece by piece. I have nothing but time here, time to think, time to plan. And when I finally walk out of these gates, it won't be as the broken man she left behind. Months pass, each day feeling like a dull repetition of the last. The prison routine is monotonous, but in this relentless cycle, I've found clarity. I've started reading anything I can get my hands on, books on psychology, law, even some on finance. Each word fuels the strategy forming in my mind, piecing together a plan with surgical precision. I may be stuck here physically, but mentally, I'm already out, already weaving the intricate web that will bring Jenna down. I've made a friend of sorts in Owen. He's a quiet type, but as it turns out, he has a knack for listening without judgment. He doesn't pry. He doesn't need to. He just knows, and over time, I've shared enough for him to understand why I'm here. One evening, as we sit in the yard during our allocated hour, he leans over and mutters, "You know, revenge is best served cold. Take your time. Don't rush it." I nod, appreciating his insight. There's a kinship that grows in shared silence, especially among those who've suffered betrayal. Owen may have made peace with his past, but he respects my fire, even fans it, fueling my drive. Then, one day, I receive word of my parole hearing. My behavior here has been exemplary. No fights, no trouble, just a model inmate focused on self-improvement. It's been 3 years now, 3 years of quietly biding my time, waiting for this moment. I walk into the hearing room with as much confidence as I can muster, and for once, things go my way. The parole board sees a man ready to re-enter society, and just like that, I'm granted early release. The day I leave prison, Owen stands by the gate to see me off. His parting words are simple: "Make it count." I shake his hand, nodding my promise. Outside, the world feels almost foreign, as if the air itself is lighter, fresher. But the freedom brings with it a new burden. I'm a stranger in my own life. My family is gone, my reputation tarnished, and Jenna? I have no idea where she is. But one thing I do know, I'm ready to find out. The first call I make is to an old friend, a man named Carson who runs a private investigations business. Carson knows my story. He visited me once while I was inside, offering whatever help he could when I got out. "I'm out," I tell him simply. His response is immediate. "Then let's get started." There's a thrill in the chase that I haven't felt in years. I'm free, with nothing to lose and a burning purpose. It's time to turn the tables. Carson doesn't waste time. He's already digging into Jenna's life, her whereabouts, and the web she's spun since my incarceration. I spend those first few days lying low, settling back into a world that feels both familiar and alien. Freedom feels different now, sharper somehow, and every day I wake up with a renewed sense of purpose. I'm not the same man I was before, and that's exactly what I need to be to see this plan through. 2 days later, Carson calls. "Got something for you," he says. "You might want to sit down." I feel the familiar adrenaline kick in as I listen to his report. Jenna's moved on, of course. Bought herself a flashy new condo in a ritzy part of town, something I could never have afforded on my own. She's kept her job, climbing the ranks as if nothing happened. But that's not the part that gets me. What really twists the knife is that she's been flaunting her newfound success, hosting gatherings, and rubbing elbows with some of the wealthiest people in town. It's as if she scrubbed me out of her life entirely. Then Carson drops another bombshell. She's been dating a lawyer. High profile. He's connected to some of the same circles she works with. They're practically inseparable. I can feel my fists clenching, the anger rising again. But this isn't the place for anger. It's the time for strategy. Jenna's moved on. All right. She's built a life of luxury on the ruins of our marriage, and now she's parading her new man around like a trophy. What's her situation like financially? I ask, the gears already turning. Carson chuckles, recognizing the tone in my voice. That's the interesting part. She's stretched thin, paying off that condo, maintaining the lifestyle she's trying to keep up. And it turns out, she's borrowed quite a bit to stay afloat. If someone were to, say, make a few strategic moves, she could be in a world of hurt. A slow smile spreads across my face. Carson and I discuss the next steps, each move a calculated strike in this game she doesn't even know she's playing. I'm not here to confront Jenna directly. No, that's far too simple. Instead, I'll dismantle her world piece by piece, until there's nothing left but the wreckage she deserves. The first step is to approach my old boss, Paul, who runs a medical practice. He was the one who vouched for me during my parole hearing, and I know he's got my back. I ask him for a job, something to get me back on my feet and keep my mind sharp. Paul doesn't hesitate. "You're in," he says. "But what's next?" "Just getting started," I tell him, the fire of revenge sparking brighter within me. With steady income, a quiet life, and an unseen hand ready to tip the scales. I'm finally ready to make my next move. Jenna has no idea what's coming, and that's exactly how I want it. Settling into the new job feels like slipping into a well-worn coat. The familiarity of the work, the steady rhythm of seeing patients, and handling responsibilities gives me an anchor. But in the back of my mind, my real focus remains on Jenna. Every day after work, I check in with Carson. Each conversation peels back another layer of Jenna's carefully constructed life. She's still flaunting her status. Carson tells me one evening, that condo, her designer clothes, even the car, none of it fits the budget I know she's working with. A suspicion grows in my mind, one that I want Carson to confirm. Is there any chance she's siphoning money from her job? He's silent for a moment, then chuckles. I was hoping you'd ask that. I've already started looking into it. She's too smart to leave a direct trail, but there's always a way. I hang up, the satisfaction of momentum building in my chest. Carson's thorough, and I know he'll find what I need. Until then, I focus on laying low and reconnecting with people from my past life. Slowly, I rebuild a circle of allies, careful to keep the revenge plans buried beneath layers of polite conversation. Weeks pass, and finally, Carson calls with the news I've been waiting for. She's been dipping into company funds, he says. Nothing obvious. She's too smart for that. But it's there in the expense reports, little discrepancies that add up if you know where to look. I've got enough to give her a serious headache if you want to pull the trigger. My mind races, calculating the implications. Jenna's boss is notorious for his strict policies on ethics. This discovery could ruin her, especially with her current debts and high society lifestyle. I tell Carson to sit tight. I want to time this perfectly. In the meantime, I make another strategic move. Jenna's new boyfriend, the high-profile lawyer, has a reputation that's as impeccable as his legal record. But Carson digs deeper, finding connections that might not sit well with his elite clientele if they were brought to light. Nothing illegal, but certainly scandalous enough to cast a shadow on his career if Jenna's little financial misstep were to surface publicly. It's poetic in a way. I'm not just bringing Jenna down. I'm disrupting the entire foundation of the life she's built in my absence. She's tangled herself in a web of lies, debts, and deception, and I'm here to pull every thread loose until it all falls apart. By the time I've got everything in place, I feel a strange sense of calm. I've become the ghost haunting her perfect life, the quiet hand guiding her downfall. She has no idea who's coming for her, and that's exactly how I want it. I can practically see it. The moment she realizes her empire is crumbling, when she understands that there's no way out. And when that day comes, I'll be there to watch it all burn. The day I pull the first thread of Jenna's life apart is just like any other. I go to work, see my patients, and exchange polite nods with my colleagues. The only difference is that today, Carson initiates the plan. He's already prepared a package of anonymous tips detailing Jenna's financial mismanagement at her workplace. It's enough to raise alarms without directly implicating her at first. Carson assures me he sent the tips through a burner account, one that can't be traced back to either of us. It'll hit her workplace in waves, he explains, and I can almost hear the grin in his voice. First, they'll investigate. Then, when she least expects it, they'll close in. We'll have her scrambling for weeks. It's an odd feeling, the satisfaction of watching someone else's life unravel as painfully as mine did. A part of me wonders if it makes me know better than her, but I silence that thought quickly. She shattered my life without a second thought, turned me into someone I hardly recognized. This isn't vengeance. This is justice. 3 days later, the first crack appears. Carson keeps an ear to the ground, monitoring her workplace's chatter. Word gets around that Jenna's firm has started reviewing certain accounts. It's nothing major yet, just enough to keep her uneasy. I imagine her at her desk, glancing over her shoulder, wondering if anyone suspects anything. The suspense alone must be eating away at her. The next phase involves her new boyfriend, the lawyer. Carson has dug up an old college scandal involving him, a little-known indiscretion that, while minor, could still be damaging if the right people heard about it. Carson leaks the information quietly, feeding it to the very circles that fuel his reputation. The whispers begin, small enough to be dismissed at first, but persistent enough to chip away at his untarnished image. Meanwhile, I keep up appearances. I'm the ideal employee, the picture of stability. I even attend the occasional after-work happy hour, laughing and nodding at the right moments. Nobody would guess what I'm orchestrating behind the scenes. A week later, Carson calls with an update that makes my stomach tighten with satisfaction. Her boss called her in for a closed-door meeting today. He says, "From what I've gathered, they're already questioning her about certain expenses." The image of Jenna, once so confident, now sitting in that office, struggling to explain herself, sends a thrill through me. This is just the beginning, the first taste of the chaos I'm about to unleash. Her world is unraveling, thread by thread, and there's no way for her to stop it. That night, I go to bed with a feeling I haven't felt in years: peace. Jenna's empire is built on lies, and soon, there won't be a single pillar left standing. The tension builds slowly, and I savor every piece of intel Carson feeds me. Jenna's life is beginning to fray at the edges, her stress climbing with each passing day. Carson tells me she's working late more often, that her colleagues have started keeping their distance, wary of getting too close to someone under investigation. But that's only half the equation. Her boyfriend, the polished lawyer with his elite connections, is also feeling the heat. Whispers about his past misdeeds are circling, just loud enough to make his clients question his integrity. The circles he moves in are ruthless. Reputation is everything, and even the slightest scandal can be deadly. Then, Carson drops another juicy detail. Guess what? Jenna's financial issues are worse than we thought. She's maxed out nearly every credit line she has, he says, clearly pleased with the chaos unfolding. If they fire her, she'll have nothing to fall back on. This is exactly the vulnerability I've been waiting for. I asked Carson to start Phase 2, a move designed to push her even closer to the edge. He discreetly spreads rumors within her firm, hinting that her mismanagement might lead to layoffs. As the whispers grow, her co-workers' resentment begins to surface. They'll soon see Jenna not just as a possible thief, but as a direct threat to their jobs. It's the kind of pressure that could make anyone crack. Meanwhile, I decide to pay an old friend a visit. Terry used to work with Jenna, back when we were still together. He's since moved on to a different company, but he knows everyone in her network. Terry and I sit down for a drink, and I subtly steer the conversation toward Jenna. He mentions hearing some wild rumors about her current situation, his tone laced with schadenfreude. "Oh, it's bad," he chuckles, leaning in. "I heard she's been spending money like water and treating herself to things no one on her salary can afford. People are talking." I feign surprise, nodding along as Terry continues. It's perfect. He's already in the loop, and I make sure to fuel his curiosity without tipping my hand. The network is working just as I'd hoped. Gossip spreading, her reputation faltering, and with it, the illusion she's worked so hard to build. The next day, I meet with Carson to finalize the details for the last phase. We're nearly ready for the final blow, the one that will leave her reputation in tatters and destroy her carefully crafted image. Carson promises to take care of the arrangements, assuring me he'll time it just right to maximize the fallout. It's strange, this feeling of calm as everything comes together. I used to lie awake, tortured by memories of what she did to me. But now, there's only a cold clarity. She stole everything from me, left me in ruins. But now it's her turn to feel the devastation, and there's no turning back. Soon, Jenna will realize the gravity of her betrayal. She'll understand exactly how it feels to watch your life crumble, powerless to stop it. And when that moment comes, I'll be there, watching from the shadows, a silent witness to her undoing. A month into our plan, Jenna's world is hanging by a thread. The investigation at her workplace has intensified. She's under constant scrutiny, every expense, every receipt examined like a crime scene. Carson tells me she's looking worn, thinner, and that her once confident demeanor has been replaced with something more desperate. The strain has bled into her personal life, too. Her lawyer boyfriend has become increasingly distant, no doubt wary of being connected to someone caught up in financial scandal. Carson managed to confirm through his contacts that Jenna's boyfriend is actively distancing himself, and rumors have it he's considering ending things quietly to protect his career. This is the precise moment I've been waiting for, the moment when she's vulnerable and isolated. Carson and I coordinate to execute the final step, a tip-off to her firm's legal team about specific discrepancies in her work reports. With this new information, there's no way her employer can ignore the investigation any longer. A few days later, Carson calls with the update I've been waiting for. They've called her into a meeting with the higher-ups. Looks like they're about to drop the hammer, he says, barely able to contain his excitement. I picture Jenna sitting in that boardroom, facing a panel of stony-faced executives, each word another nail in the coffin of her career. Carson's intel tells me that they've given her a choice: either resign quietly or face a public scandal that will blacklist her from the industry. She's out of options, out of allies, and, more importantly, out of time. When I finally hear that she's resigned, the satisfaction is almost surreal. She's lost her job, her reputation, and with her towering debts, it won't be long before her financial reality catches up with her lifestyle. The condo, the designer clothes, the image she worked so hard to build. It'll all come crashing down. As Carson and I sit down over drinks that evening to toast our success, he raises his glass with a smirk. "To justice," he says, clinking his glass against mine. I can only smile, feeling lighter than I have in years. Jenna might still have her high-rise apartment and her expensive taste, but they're on borrowed time. Soon, she'll have to sell everything just to stay afloat. And when that day comes, she'll know exactly who brought her to her knees. And that's when I decide to make one final move. A gift of sorts, a little reminder of the life she destroyed and the consequences she could never escape. The idea of a gift keeps rolling around in my mind, and the more I think about it, the more perfect it feels. It's not just about revenge anymore. It's about sending a message, one that will haunt her every time she thinks she's finally moved on. So, I get to work, crafting a plan as meticulous as it is symbolic. I start with something simple, a package, but not just any package. One that will play on her fears, her guilt, and the memories she'd rather forget. Inside, I plan to include a few choice items that will bring back the painful reminders of what she did to me and how it all led to this point. An empty baseball bat case. No bat, just the case, accompanied by a single note. On it, just 2 words: "Remember me?" The effect, I imagine, will be chilling. She'll know exactly what it means, and it'll unearth memories she's probably spent years burying. She thought she'd erased me, moved on with her life of luxury, but this will serve as a reminder that I'm still here, and I'm the one pulling the strings now. Once I have the package ready, I hire a courier to deliver it to her condo. I make sure the delivery is timed for the late afternoon, right around when she's likely home alone, with no one to shield her from the past. As I wait, anticipation builds, every second stretching out as I imagine her reaction. Around 5 p.m., Carson calls, chuckling as he speaks. The delivery went through. I bet she's losing it right now. I can almost hear her gasping as she opens the box, hands trembling as she lifts the empty bat case, the note staring back at her. The helplessness, the vulnerability, it's all coming back to her now. And she'll know, with certainty, that there's no escaping what she's done. Later that evening, I get a text from Carson. It's a photo he managed to snap discreetly from a distance. A shot of Jenna standing by her condo window, pale as a ghost, staring at the box on the table. Even through the grainy photo, I can see the fear etched across her face. For the first time in years, I feel free. Free from the chains of her betrayal, free from the rage that fueled me through those years in prison. She's been haunted by her actions, by the mistakes she thought she'd left behind. But now, I've given her a reminder she'll never be able to shake. I raise a glass to the photo, savoring the taste of liberation. The game is almost over, but there's still one final move to make. A move that will strip her of the last remnants of her pride and control. And this time, I won't be sending a package. I'll be delivering it in person. The decision to confront Jenna in person feels inevitable, the final act of this drawn-out saga. I've watched her life unravel from a distance, but now it's time for her to look me in the eye and see the man she tried to destroy. It's time for her to understand that she never truly escaped me. I arrange a meeting through a mutual acquaintance, Someone who has no idea about our history and won't question my motives. Under the guise of needing closure after everything that happened, I suggest a neutral location, a quiet restaurant on the edge of town. Jenna reluctantly agrees, probably hoping this will end whatever nightmare I've reignited. On the day of our meeting, I arrive early, taking a seat in a secluded corner. I want her to feel vulnerable, unsure of what to expect. The minutes tick by, each one building the anticipation as I mentally replay the series of events that led us here. When Jenna finally walks in, I barely recognize her. She looks gaunt, exhausted, with none of the arrogance she once flaunted. Her eyes dart around the room, wary, until they land on me. For a moment, she hesitates, her hand lingering near the door as if she might bolt. But then, as if resigning herself to the confrontation, she approaches and sits down across from me. Silence hangs between us, thick with years of unspoken words. I lean forward, allowing the quiet tension to settle before I speak. "You look well, Jenna," I say, keeping my tone measured, almost polite. Her lips press into a thin line, and she shifts uncomfortably. "Why am I here?" she asks, her voice barely above a whisper. "Closure," I reply, echoing the excuse I'd given to get her here. But there's more to it than that, and she knows it. Her eyes narrow slightly, a flicker of the old fire in them. "You've made your point," she says bitterly. "You've done enough to ruin my life." "I get it." I tilt my head, letting her words sink in. "Ruin your life?" I echo, my voice calm. "That was never the intention, Jenna. I just wanted you to understand what it feels like to lose everything. To watch your life crumble, helpless to stop it." She scoffs, crossing her arms defensively. "And what does this get you? Satisfaction? Revenge? You think this makes us even?" I hold her gaze, unflinching. "This isn't about getting even. This is about consequences. Actions have a way of catching up to people, especially when they least expect it." For a moment, I see a flash of something vulnerable in her eyes. It's almost pitiful, the way she clings to whatever dignity she has left. But there's no pity left in me. I lean back, letting the weight of my words settle between us. "You made a choice, Jenna." I continue, my tone cold. "You walked away from our life, thinking you could rewrite your story without consequences. But you don't get to erase me." She looks away, her hands trembling slightly as they grip the edge of the table. "What do you want?" she asks, barely meeting my gaze. I let the question hang for a moment before answering. "I want you to know that no matter where you go, no matter how far you run, you'll carry this with you. This isn't something you can escape." She swallows hard, her face pale. "Is that it?" she asks, her voice laced with desperation. I give a slight nod, knowing the message has hit its mark. "That's it, Jenna. I think we both know there's nothing left to say." With that, I stand, leaving her there, a shadow of the woman she once was. As I walk out of the restaurant, a strange sense of finality washes over me. The burden I carried for so long has lifted, replaced by something close to peace. She may never understand the full weight of her betrayal, but she'll never forget the price she paid. And that's enough. Walking out of the restaurant, I feel lighter than I have in years. The final confrontation was the closure I didn't even know I needed. I've confronted Jenna, watched the confidence drain from her face, seen the vulnerability she tried to hide, and it's left me with a sense of release. It's over now, truly over. For a few weeks, I immerse myself in work, diving into cases and patient care with a renewed energy. The satisfaction of building something positive feels like a balm, covering the scars Jenna left behind. Carson still checks in occasionally, updating me on Jenna's latest missteps as she struggles to recover from the wreckage of her life. But I realize, with a sense of quiet relief, that I no longer care. Jenna is her own ghost to chase now, and she'll be haunted by what she's lost for the rest of her life. But then, out of the blue, I receive a text message from an unknown number. The words are terse and to the point. "I know everything. We need to talk." I stare at the message, a chill crawling down my spine. I've covered every base, left no evidence that could trace my hand in Jenna's downfall. Still, the message hangs there, ominous and undeniable. Who could possibly know? Who would even care to dig that deep? The next day, I meet Carson, showing him the text. He reads it over, his expression grim but calculating. Could be a bluff, he says, his tone steady. Someone fishing for a reaction. Or maybe Jenna's trying to claw her way back with a Hail Mary move. I consider this, but something doesn't add up. Jenna would have confronted me directly at the restaurant if she had anything solid. No, I say, shaking my head. This feels different. It's too direct, too precise. Carson thinks it over, then nods. All right, let's trace it. I'll see what I can dig up. The following days pass with an unsettling silence. Carson's usually prompt with updates, but this time, there's nothing. It's only on the fourth day that he finally calls me, his tone unusually clipped. Meet me in the usual spot. Now. When I arrive, Carson's already waiting, his face set in a rare expression of seriousness. You're right to be concerned, he says without preamble. That text wasn't just some random bluff. I did some digging, and it's from someone who knows what we did. A chill settles over me. Who? I ask, my voice barely a whisper. Jenna's boyfriend, Carson replies. Or, should I say, her ex. He's been snooping around ever since she lost her job, and apparently, he's pieced enough together to know that you were behind it. I take a deep breath, trying to steady the anger simmering beneath my shock. So, what now? Is he looking to threaten me? Carson's expression darkens. I think he's after leverage. He knows she's ruined, and he's looking for a way to make it right for himself. From what I gather, he's planning to use this to worm his way back into his old circles, maybe even paint himself as the victim. The irony is almost laughable. This man, who only moments ago had been willing to throw Jenna under the bus, now sees himself as the hero of his own twisted narrative. But I can't ignore the threat he poses. This isn't about Jenna anymore. It's about protecting the life I've rebuilt. The next steps are clear. I'm done playing defense. If he wants a fight, he'll get one, but on my terms. Carson and I waste no time putting a plan in motion. We know this ex-boyfriend, with his desperate need to clear his own name, will try to leverage any dirt he thinks he has. But desperation often leads to mistakes, and that's exactly what I'm counting on. We begin by gathering intel on him, learning everything we can about his current situation, his finances, his connections. Carson is thorough, and within days, he's compiled a dossier on the man that paints a very different picture from the polished reputation he tries to uphold. It turns out he's been cutting corners, bending ethical lines in his cases, and is knee-deep in some questionable financial dealings. It's the sort of information that could sink his career just as easily as Jenna's. I start to see a way out, a strategy that will keep him too busy fighting his own fires to come after me. But it'll require precise timing and absolute discretion. Carson and I prepare a carefully curated set of tips detailing his shady practices, along with a few anonymous leads directed to some of his biggest clients. We know that once these clients get a whiff of his lack of integrity, they'll start asking questions he won't want to answer. But I need one last thing. A confrontation that will leave him with no doubts about what will happen if he tries to cross me. So I arrange to meet him, picking a neutral location where we can speak without prying eyes. I find him waiting in a secluded spot at a park, his posture tense, his gaze darting around as if expecting trouble. As I approach, I keep my face calm, my expression unreadable. You wanted to talk? I say, my tone cool and steady. He glares at me, barely concealing his frustration. I know what you did, he snaps, his voice low but seething with anger. You think you're clever, but I'm not blind. You orchestrated everything, ruined her life, and now you think you can just walk away? I let his words hang in the air for a moment, then reply evenly, you're wrong. I didn't ruin her life. She did that all on her own. I simply made sure she faced the consequences. He scoffs, crossing his arms defensively. Well, I know enough to make your life difficult. I could bring all this down on you, expose every detail. I give him a measured look, my voice quiet but firm. You could try, but that would only bring your secrets to light as well. Do you think your clients would stand by you if they knew the full extent of your professional misconduct? For a split second, I see a flicker of doubt in his eyes. He wasn't expecting this. He thought he held all the cards, But now he's realizing just how exposed he really is. "This isn't over," he says, his tone faltering slightly. "I'll find a way to make you pay." I step closer, lowering my voice. "Be careful with your threats. You're in over your head, and the only way you walk away from this unscathed is if you stay out of my business. Trust me when I say, you don't want to know what happens if you push me." He opens his mouth to retort, but the words die as he processes the gravity of what I've said. We stand there, locked in a silent standoff, until finally, he looks away, defeated. Without another word, he turns and walks off, his shoulders tense with frustration and, I hope, a touch of fear. As I watch him leave, I feel a strange sense of finality. I've faced down the last remnant of Jenna's betrayal, extinguished the final threat to my peace. Now, at last, I can move forward, truly free from the shadows of my past. After the confrontation, I keep a close watch on Jenna's ex-boyfriend, anticipating any sign that he might try to strike back. But days turn into weeks, and it's clear he's heeded my warning. I learned through Carson's network that he's scrambling to repair his reputation, focusing all his energy on damage control within his own life. As far as I can tell, he's no longer a threat. It's a victory, but a quiet one, allowing me to slip back into my own routine without the shadow of constant vigilance. With the loose ends tied up, I turn my focus fully back to my career and rebuilding what Jenna tore down. The work feels more fulfilling now, free from the nagging weight of unfinished business. I throw myself into my practice, even reconnecting with friends I distanced myself from over the years. Slowly, life takes on a new rhythm, one defined not by anger or vengeance, but by peace and purpose. One afternoon, as I'm wrapping up a late appointment, my phone buzzes with a message from Carson. It's an update I didn't expect. Jenna has left town. She's sold the condo, liquidated her remaining assets, and disappeared without a trace. I read the message twice, feeling an unexpected pang of surprise. I had assumed she would continue clawing her way back into the life she'd built, fighting tooth and nail to reclaim her former status. But instead, she's walked away, leaving everything behind. I sit with the news for a while, letting it settle. There's a part of me that feels almost sympathetic. She's lost everything, not just her career and her reputation, but the entire world she once prized so highly. I don't feel satisfaction in her downfall anymore, just a sense of inevitability. She made her choices, and this is where they led her. As I leave the office that evening, I realize I don't feel any lingering resentment toward Jenna. In a strange way, her departure feels like the last piece of closure I needed. She's gone, both from my life and from the world she once shared with me. All that's left now is the future, a future that's finally, completely mine. In the days that follow, I find myself considering new possibilities. I start exploring hobbies I'd set aside, interests I'd neglected. I join a local hiking group, take up boxing at a gym nearby, and even find myself enjoying small gatherings with friends. Each step feels like reclaiming a part of myself that I'd forgotten. One evening, as I'm sitting on my porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon, a sense of profound peace washes over me. The chapter with Jenna is closed, and I'm no longer the man she betrayed and left in ruins. I've built something stronger from the ashes, something that's mine alone. And as I raise a glass to the fading sunlight, I realize that, for the first time in years, I'm free. Not just from Jenna, but from the anger that once defined me. I've reclaimed my life, and in the silence, in the simplicity of this moment, I finally feel whole. Life falls into place in a way I never expected. Free from the chaos of revenge and the haunting memories of Jenna, I embrace a life focused on growth and renewal. Days blend into a satisfying rhythm. Work at the clinic, evenings spent boxing or hiking. Weekends dedicated to rediscovering old friendships and forming new ones. Each day feels fuller, the weight of my past lifted as I carve out a future built on my terms. As time passes, I even find myself interested in dating again, though the idea feels strange at first. I'm careful, taking things slow. The past has taught me to guard my trust, to value honesty and authenticity over charm or appearances. Surprisingly, I find myself drawn to a woman named Claire, who I meet through a mutual friend at a small dinner gathering. She's grounded, quick-witted, and possesses a refreshing honesty that puts me at ease. We start meeting for coffee, talking about everything from favorite books to life's unexpected twists, and over time, those casual meetups turn into something more. Claire knows about my history, the marriage that ended in betrayal, and she respects the boundaries I still maintain. But unlike Jenna, she doesn't push or pry. She simply meets me where I am, allowing me to set the pace. One night, as we're walking along a quiet trail near the edge of town, Claire stops, looking up at the stars that fill the night sky. "You seem lighter these days," she says, a hint of a smile in her voice, like someone who's finally found peace. I glance at her, surprised by the simple truth of her words. "I think I have," I reply, my voice steady. "For a long time, I thought I needed to settle a score, to make things right by tearing down what was left of my past. But somewhere along the way, I found something better than revenge." She looks at me, curiosity in her gaze. "And what's that?" "Freedom," I say quietly, almost to myself. Freedom from the anger, from the need to even the scales. I didn't realize how much it was holding me back until I let it go. Claire reaches out, taking my hand, her fingers warm and steady. "That sounds like real healing," she says softly. "Not everyone finds it." As we walk on in comfortable silence, I reflect on her words. I've come full circle, from a man consumed by anger to someone who's finally allowed himself to heal. It's a journey I wouldn't have chosen, but one that's shaped me in ways I never anticipated. I'm stronger, more self-aware, and I understand now that true peace comes from within, not from settling old scores, but from building a life of meaning and connection. In the weeks that follow, my relationship with Claire deepens, each moment shared a testament to the power of resilience. Jenna and the scars she left behind no longer hold any power over me. I'm ready to leave the past where it belongs and embrace the future with open arms. Months roll by, and with each passing day, I find myself more rooted in the life I've rebuilt. The anger, once a constant shadow, has faded, replaced by a quiet confidence that comes from overcoming darkness. Claire has become a steady presence in my life, and together, we've formed a bond built on honesty, trust, and mutual respect. The very things I once thought were lost to me forever. One evening, Claire and I sit together on the porch, sharing a quiet moment as dusk settles over the town. She leans her head against my shoulder, and as we sit there, I feel the contentment of simply being present, of living in the moment rather than being haunted by the past. For the first time, I can picture a future filled with peace, companionship, and genuine happiness. "Do you ever think about what you went through?" Claire asks softly, as if sensing the finality of my journey. Sometimes, I admit, though there's no bitterness in my voice, but not in the way I used to. I think of it more as a reminder of what I overcame rather than something that holds me back. It's strange, but in a way, I'm almost grateful for it. I wouldn't be who I am today if it hadn't happened. She nods, understanding in her eyes. Life has a way of shaping us, even through the hardest things. We sit in silence, the weight of those words sinking in. I realize in that quiet moment that I've found something much more valuable than revenge or justice. I've found peace, a sense of purpose that goes beyond settling scores. I've learned that true strength isn't just about winning battles. It's about finding the courage to heal, to rebuild, and to move forward without carrying the weight of past pain. As the stars appear in the sky, I take Claire's hand, grateful for this journey that led me here. Life may not be perfect, but it's real, and it's mine. The scars remain, reminders of the man I was and the man I've become. But they no longer define me. Instead, they're just part of the story, a story that's far from over. And with that, I close the door on the past, stepping fully into the life I've chosen, ready to embrace whatever comes next. Thank you for following along. Have you ever gone through a journey of healing and transformation? Share your story below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more narratives on resilience and personal growth.